7:30 NBC. It is your Oregon Ducks. It is my Penn State Nittany Lions. The point spread at time of recording is Penn State minus 3.5 points.
Yeah.
It was bouncing around in my brain before we hit record here that this reminds me a lot of 2005 when I went to a game with a friend. I was a Notre Dame fan. He was a USC fan, and we saw the Bush Push.
Oh, sure. 20 years ago.
20 years ago. Yeah. Thanks for that reminder.
Of course.
But could we see another classic game like this as I'm in attendance with a friend who is rooting for the other team on the field?
That's a good question.
Again, we will be at this game. If you will be at this game, solidverbal@gmail.com. Hit us up. We'd love to meet up if we can.
Ty's about 6'6". You won't be able to miss him.
Can't miss me. Tough spot for Oregon, Dan.
Very tough.
Tough spot. On the road, at night, whiteout in State College. Have you been to a whiteout before?
I have. I think it was a whiteout. I went to Jimmy Clausen's first game, Notre Dame, Penn State, 2007. I don't have like a a whiteout index, but it seemed like a very large game, and it was, I think, at night. So I don't know when they did the whiteout in 2007, but that's where I was.
There's been definitely more of a effort to make the whiteout a thing since then.
Yeah.
The whiteout wasn't always around, but the whiteout is very much around now. And the whiteout is very much going to play a factor, I think, in this game at night. NBC, again, will be covering this one. Oregon looks like they get penalized a lot on defense, as does Penn State.
Okay.
Oregon is blitzing, but not getting as much pressure as I'd expect. So I've got a question about their defensive line underperforming.
I wouldn't. They've just played teams who have just tried to throw the ball in half a second to combat Oregon. But yeah.
I've got a question about whether we think Penn State can run on Oregon.
Okay.
Because based, again, at what I'm seeing on a spreadsheet, it looks like, okay, maybe they're gettable. But again, how much do we really take that to the bank? I don't know.
Okay.
On the Penn State side, I think it's been more of a trend that they have not been super duper explosive. This is not a new thing. This was the case last year as well. So we've got a couple things floating around out there, at least with respect to spreadsheets and numbers and early tendencies that we're picking up. It's tough to know exactly what we should focus on and what we shouldn't. What are you focused on?
I think I'm focused on quarterbacks and offensive lines more than anything because, I don't know, Oregon might have issues stopping the run a little bit. And obviously Penn State has two terrific running backs. But to me, it's what is the architecture of Penn State's offense? Are they going to be able to stop Oregon's edge rushers, especially Mateo Uiagalelei? And what is Oregon's offensive line going to look like against a very good Penn State front? And it's a pretty new Oregon offensive line, 2 new tackles, a new guard. And then it's a new quarterback trying to make sense of everything in a very hostile road environment for Oregon, whereas Drew Allar obviously has a ton of seasoning at Penn State with these offensive linemen in these big games. The good news for Penn State is they're at home. The good news for Penn State is there's a ton back on this defense. And so if you have an electric home field advantage and a defense and an experienced quarterback, why would you pick anybody else? Answer: Penn State never wins these games. Penn State didn't score on offense in this game last year against Ohio State, right? That was a whiteout. That was a noon whiteout, I want to say, when we were at Michigan, Oregon, I want to say.
Yep.
Penn State doesn't perform in these games under James Franklin. Now, they hired Ohio State's defensive coordinator to fix things, but I don't know if defense was really the issue last season. I think they've got a good coordinator. But I think to beat Oregon this season, I kind of think you need to have game-changing guys on offense. Penn State has that at running back, at least with Katron Allen. We'll see with Nick Singleton. They don't have Tyler Warren. They don't have an obvious stud receiver in this moment. Maybe that guy develops. But you need to score points to beat Oregon. Whatever Oregon's flaws are this season, I still feel like you're going to need to score 30 points to beat the Ducks. And Drew Allar hasn't been that. The past, 6, 7, 8 games? Playoff games? Non-playoff games? Villanova? Whatever? This hasn't been like a Penn State offense that has been just like, all right, now this guy's turn up the seam. Now that guy's turn for a screen to take it 70 yards. That's not Penn State. And so I think Oregon's the better team. I think situationally it's a no-brainer for Penn State. So I went back and forth on this. I'm going to go with the team that I think has better players and more ways to win this game. And I think that's Oregon. Yeah. I started out with, okay, Penn State's winning this game. What are the holes I can poke in that theory? That was my starting point. Penn State should win this game. Penn State never wins this game. And a lot of it is because of the offense. A lot of it is because they find quarterbacks, develop quarterbacks, win a ton of games, and never this one.
What's your final score?
I wrote down 28-23 Oregon.
Okay.
Oregon's allowed one touchdown. They've played a better schedule, not a great schedule, but they've allowed one touchdown. Their defensive starters have won one touchdown this season. And I don't know. I think Penn State's good, but what proof do we have that they're great? I mean, aren't they just sort of colder Clemson at this point? If Drew Allar was so good, shouldn't he be on an NFL roster right now?
Listen, everything you're saying I think is true. My question about Allar in this game is whether Oregon can rattle him. You know, like I remain an unabashed Allar apologist here. I am waiting for the moment where I feel like it all clicks. We haven't gotten there yet. This is last year.
Yeah.
We did see a couple moments in big games last year down the stretch where he was very emotional, and I think you could argue it affected his decision-making.
Okay.
And so far this year, we've also seen some interesting decisions when he wasn't rattled. This is an ideal spot for Penn State. They get this one at home, but it is also a big game, and he needs to play within himself. And if we see Drew Allar doing kind of what he did in moments down the stretch a year ago, the Notre Dame game, I think, being a prime example of that on that final drive, Drew Allar needs to keep his head to him.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a guy who lacks composure. I just think he really feels the moment. I think he has grown into being more of a leader. I think it has been a long process. And I still think he is damn good. But he needs to prove that he can withstand a moment like this, a situation like this, keep a cool head, and prevail. I think that's a fair question to ask. And then on the flip side, I would say, with respect to your boy, Dante Moore, who's looked outstanding so far this year.
Sure.
I want to see how Penn State chooses to try and get pressure on him, i.e., can they get pressure without overcommitting and blitzing? They've been able to do it so far this season against really bad teams. And we have seen on occasion over the last couple of years, this is something Penn State tends to be very good at.
Yeah.
Without overcommitting, because their front is so good, they're able to get pressure. Can they do that against a good team like Oregon? More to your question about offensive line and how it gels on the road, hostile night environment where it's going to be loud as crap.
Yeah.
How do they deal with that Penn State front? Does Penn State have to overcommit in order to make him rattled? History would suggest that they can do this, certainly on the Penn State side as well as the Jim Knowles side. They're very good at figuring out ways to do this. But this is the first real team they're playing this year.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I think it's fair to wonder, can Penn State do that here? And if they do, what does Dante Moore look like?
Sure.
This is a new situation for him as well. And I'll go back to what I said at the top. I do think that it's very important Penn State set the tone by running the football. In the early part of the season, for whatever it's worth to you, and again, take these numbers with a grain of salt, but there is at least some evidence in the numbers that you might be able to run against Oregon. Or at least a little bit more than you'd expect.
Their linebackers are inconsistent. There's one or two guys where they're playing probably a little bit too much. But you're not wrong.
So I think that's imperative for Penn State.
Yeah.
I really do. And much like you, I found myself coming into this matchup feeling like Penn State was the no-brainer favorite to win.
Yeah.
And coming out of it feeling a lot more leery than I expected.
Right.
I think it ends up being a close affair. I think it's a defensive matchup. I don't think you need to beat 30 or get to 30 points to beat Oregon. But I just think deep down, Oregon's been better so far this season. They have looked better. We've watched all their games, both sides of this. I've watched all of their games. Oregon has looked better.
Yep.
Ducks go on the road to State College. They win 26-24.
Man, you're always wrong, though, Ty.
Just saying, maybe that's why I made this pick.
I go back to, it was floating around the internet this past year, what Drew Allar's numbers were when he was throwing to Tyler Warren and when he was throwing to anybody else. He's on a string of like looking ordinary in 9 of his last 10 games, with like the one being Purdue or Minnesota or something. Minnesota was pretty good last.